Hey, this is Pradeep with Sensatura, and today we are looking at some standout fragrances from the last 5 years. We are reaching the end of 2025. In fact, there is less than 100 days before we are in 2026, another fast year. So I thought I would make a mid-decade recap type of video, sort of like an extension to my best of the quarter century list, but this time focusing only on the 2020s. That other video is up on the channel. Just to set it up, I have essentially taken the same route with this list, in that it is not based on popularity, sales, what's in trend this week, and so forth. Second, it goes without saying, I have not smelled or purchased all of the releases from the last 5 years. That is even within the fragrance ecosystem of the West. Then there are brands from other countries. The number of new brands has just exploded in the last 5 years, so it's impossible to keep up. So this is just based on what resonated with me, the ones I have bottles of. 20 fragrances, including designers, exclusives, niche, indie, everything. It is also not a ranked list. There are others which did not make the cut. Some more I don't own bottles of, but still worth checking out. That list I will leave in the description. With all that being said, let's get started. First is a Chanel fragrance from their Les Eaux collection. Of course, a fairly new collection for the brand, launched in 2018. This one came a bit late in 2021. Composed by the Renault's perfumer Olivier Poge. This is Paris-Edimbourg. This is a tribute to the Scottish Highlands, notably for the affair between Gabrielle Chanel and the Duke of Westminster. One of the couple of releases that references a destination outside of France, the other being Venice. In terms of scent, this is a woody aromatic composition featuring a prominent presence from juniper, cypress and lavender. Clearly the more masculine leaning in this lineup takes inspiration from the kilt and plaid styling of Scottish fashion at that time. Feels more brooding, serious, combining that foresty outdoor attributes with the watery oceanic side. I can picture a Scottish gentleman's antique wardrobe with this peaty aftershave and gin. That kind of smell. This one is an EDT and lasts for a decent amount of time. It has a good balance of fresh and woody aspects, so it's very versatile as well. There's a superb combination of herbal aromatic lavender, forest estate kind of cypress, and this dry earthy vetiver with some cedar wood. The juniper berries give it a lot of freshness. With all those elements, it feels like a timeless masculine scent. You know how the brand not releasing a totally new men's pillar has kind of become a recurring quip in the last few years? Well, after spending a lot of time with this, and it is one of my most worn fresh fragrances, I've come to accept this as an unofficial men's fragrance. Sure, it's not as modern as, say, Bleu de Chanel exclusive, but it's still fantastic. I can only imagine what a full-on men's fragrance from the brand with this scent profile would smell like. Next, going to the house of Guerlain, from the same year, 2021, released as part of their Arts and Materials collection. This is Iris Torréfiée, composed by Delphine Yelk. This translates to roasted iris, seems to be a spin on the French word for coffee roasters. It is predominantly an iris ambrette suede composition. It is in the style of your Dior kind of iris, powdery, lipstick, makeup like buttery iris. Some classical characteristics are there as well. The ambrette brings in this sort of vegetal, musky, powdery, at the same time waxy, textured dryness. Feels like suede leather. You get that warm, roasted facet. The inspiration is that of a chic Parisian woman at a cafe, so no surprise. They even claim there's coffee, cardamom notes in here, but they are only distant minor players. An excellent iris leather scent. I think this is possibly Delphine Yelk's best creation. After this, the collection kind of turned full-on commercial. Up to this, there was still some essence of the old Guerlain left. Then this collection sort of exploded. They started to release a whole lot every year. Then came the sweet bombs like Tobacco Honey, the 3 Ouds, fruity Créations, and some other lukewarm releases, the pricing increased and the bottles also changed. So it's almost like a new phase for the brand after this. Add to that, this also seems to have been discontinued. So I hope this bottle lasts for a while. Number 3, I think is a relatively underrated designer fragrance release. From 2022, this is H24 Eau de Parfum version, composed by the renowned perfumer Christine Nagel. The original EDT came out in 2019 as a new men's pillar. It had very interesting ideas, specifically going for the green side of things, when most of men's releases at that time were going for either the blue style or the sugary, sweet, caramel, goma style. The sweet trend is one we have seen even in niche fragrances, to be fair. In the end, the EDT did not fully work for me because of how metallic it came across. This EDP version, I think, improves upon this theme. It still has that chromatic, herbal, clary sage as the anchor. It's grassy, aromatic, green. Only this time, the metallic facets are toned down. The stylistic moss accord is pushed up. Add to that a prominent narcissus note, more woody, earthy elements, touch of spices, and you get this. It feels much more textured and streamlined than the EDT. Certainly one of the more interesting designer creations of the last few years. That's why, in spite of the more popular ones, like the Herbe Vie version or Terre d'Hermes Eau Givrée, I wanted to highlight this. Once again, cementing Hermes as the designer that does not follow trends and tries to take risks when possible. If not for a few exceptions like this, most of the signature releases have been kind of repetitive and forgettable over the last 5 years, at least for me. Let's do some niche brands next. From 2023, this is Cologne Officinal from Heely. This is inspired by the Mediterranean breeze in the south of France, specifically a corridor in Marseille by the sea. It was created in collaboration with a boutique there called Jogging. In terms of scent, it is a herbal, aromatic, soapy composition. The word officinal itself can refer to a herbal bath. For me, it's a combination of 3 elements from the Provence region. I mentioned this in my old review from a couple of years back. You have the herbal component, rosemary, sage, basil, with some lavender, forming this aromatic, spicy, green side. Then you have the earthy, mossy aspects of the sea breeze. And finally, this Marseille soap accord, which is this dry, herbal, olive green, opaque, old-fashioned soapiness. And this does feel like a throwback, classic, masculine scent, only with a modern twist. I lived in Marseille for a year, so there's a bit of nostalgia as well. But the fragrance itself is stupendous. The fact that it is cheaper than a lot of designers these days makes it stand out even more. Number 5, going to another impressive niche house. From 2024, this is Amnesia Rose, composed by Luca Maffei for Edes de Venustas. I shared my impressions on this when it was launched. Since then, it's grown on me tremendously, enough that I bought a bottle last December. I only began wearing it regularly this year, and so far it has been excellent. It opens with a rich, spicy, peppery brightness and a hint of aromatic saffron. There's a distant echo of Portrait of a Lady, though without the red fruits or Baroque drama, and I like to use this analogy. I think it helps differentiate them perfectly. If Portrait is an opera, this feels like a jazz club, smoother, more velvety, moody, and balsamic, lending it that timeless rose patchouli character. The aspect that differentiates it from a regular run-of-the-mill rose scent is that it becomes saturated, revealing this dusky, grey, violet shade of rose. It is elegant, muted, and modern. It's kind of rare for a new rose fragrance to surprise me anymore, but this has been the one that genuinely captivated me. It has also quickly become one of my favorites from this brand. Up next, let's do a brand that has kind of become the go-to reference in terms of gathering and using high-quality materials from different terroirs. It is Les Indémodables. This fragrance, without a doubt, put them on the map. Now there's already been 3 flankers and more in the pipeline. From 2021, this is Vanilla Van composed by Antoine Lee. So far, this is one of the ones that was also featured in my list of the best fragrances of the quarter century. This is a house that has truly set a benchmark in terms of transparency of materials and also the process behind their compositions. They operate their own lab where they research, extract and synthesize raw materials. Vanilla Van, though it is a very familiar scent profile, doesn't chase the usual cherry tobacco vanilla tropes. Instead, it brings together this bitter, chewy tobacco, dried fruits soaked in rum, and dark cacao. There's a tactile leather base that grounds the entire composition. The vanilla here avoids the pastry shop gourmand cliché. It's rich, multifaceted, dark, textured vanilla kind of forms the archetype of the sweet tobacco genre, only with far more depth and maturity than we have seen before. It still keeps that appealing character, could easily be a niche bridge fragrance for someone who has been enjoying designers, for instance. And I've said this before, sometimes we have notes we believe we love in our head, yet we never find that one fragrance that truly captures them the way we imagine. For me, that's been this fragrance with the note of tobacco. Experiencing it was like suddenly switching to high definition. Each material feels vivid, nuanced, when several others from this brand can feel like pure material showcase pieces. This one achieves the perfect balance. Gourmand fragrances have exploded the last half a decade. There are brands whose entire collection looks like a dessert menu. This is a way to touch on that theme but still be sophisticated. Antoine Lee brought some exceptional energy to this project. It's rare when every element, the perfumer, concept, materials, everything aligns so seamlessly. The success of this fragrance even helped the brand reach a wider audience, and it's no surprise they have since launched multiple flankers. Still, for me, the original remains one of the most memorable releases of the last 5 years. Speaking of consistent brands, this is another one that has become a favorite, Aia Dilats. They are a Parisian ceramics house inspired by the 18th century aesthetics, with a small but dedicated group of collectors. I've enjoyed some of their fresher eau de colognes in the past, but what truly impressed me was the trio of historical perfumes that they launched in 2022, all created by Dominique Ropion. Among them, the one that stands out by far is Lenui. It is inspired by the personal scent of the French novelist Georges Sand. It is a full-bodied, vintage-esque, musky, rose patchouli chypre. The classical floral bouquet is there, rose, jasmine, ylang, only rendered in this abstract, desaturated way, so the colors feel muted rather than bright. It dries down to this dusty, patchouli sandalwood base with a faint animalic tinge. What makes this fragrance truly special for me is the overdose of powdery vintage iris that envelops everything. And I said this before when describing how it feels. It conjures an image of a pyramid crowned by a crystal, channeling energy downward. Despite its vintage inspiration, it never slips into a caricature. It isn't too dense or unwearable, fantastic for spring and summer evenings. The brand has other well-crafted compositions. I have since bought Delhi, a couple of their colognes. Of course, there's also Marthe La Jolie, which is a fantastic herbal fresh fragrance. Just an out-and-out fantastic house. I like how they give life to these long-forgotten formulas. Resurrecting old houses is kind of a mini trend we have seen recently. Dominique Ropion mentioned in his research that the original 19th century perfume on which this is based on might be the earliest known creation within the Chypre family, and it certainly carries that sense of history. Personally, I think it is his best work since Portrait of a Lady. Next, let's do a couple of incense fragrances. It is one of my favorite notes. Things got a little stagnant leading into 2020. We continue to see the same liturgical frankincense structure of Comme des Garçons being repeated over and over again, Some Italian brands like Filippo Sorcinelli, Art Profumi brought some much needed raw energy. One of the ones that stood out for me, was really unexpected, was from Name magazine. This is Adorum from 2023, composed by Fabrice Pellegrin in collaboration with a Michelin star chef. If I remember well, they both shared a love for dark notes, so decided to create a smoky, balsamic, resinous fragrance. What makes this stand out is how bold and modern the incense feels. It's dark without being heavy. Color black is what comes to mind. There's a touch of that culinary style of char and smokiness coming through. There's bitter cacao, some spicy cardamom, and a good dose of vanilla. It's ever so slightly teasing to be a gourmand, but then the frankincense, the elemi resin, pepper kind of take it in a different direction. Feels like tarry, burnt woods as it dries down. A superb twist on the incense theme. I have enjoyed a few of their quirky releases from before, like the Rose Iris one, but this is what made me sit up and consider it to be a serious release. I would be totally happy to have a 50 or 100 ml. After that is another incense fragrance that impressed me. It is from a relatively new house called Hima Jomo that focuses on natural fragrances, all inspired by the Himalayan region. From 2022, composed by Delphine Thierry, this is Autumn in Lokha. The concept is based on barley harvest at the beginning of fall. It opens spicy and smoky with this dry pepperiness supported by bay leaf, which we don't see often, birch tar and incense, which lend that sort of dark, resinous quality. Up to this point, it's a convincing smoky scent, but what makes it truly stand out is an unexpected bread or bran accord. And that's the part that takes me back. Reminds me of trekking near the Himalayan foothills. Those routes are often remote, far from towns, so the only food you can get is whole wheat, flat bread cooked over ashy wood fires. And that's exactly the image this fragrance brings to mind. Once again, just like Adorum, it's not a gourmand, but there's a subtle reminder of that warmth mingling with the temple incense in the background. It dries down to this soft, meditative sandalwood. I find it extremely pleasant as far as the wearing experience goes. The brand has 4 fragrances, each representing a season, but this is my favorite. After smoke and incense, let's pivot to smoke and leather for the next one. Cherry was popular, aldehydes came back. Minimalist, millennial, musky skin scents have been all the rage. Just some of the recent trends. But this is what would become my favorite theme of fragrances in the last 5 years, which is equestrian-inspired scents. And there is at least a couple more on this list. Fairly different compositions though. This first one, also the earliest of the 3, is from the brand of Naomi Goodsir. From 2021, Corpus Equus, composed by Bertrand Duchaufour. This brand was started in 2012, but has made only 6 fragrances so far. In fact, this is their last release, I believe. Still waiting for something new. They are mainly known for dark, smoky scent profiles. Nuit du Bakelite by Isabelle Doyen is a personal favorite. That came out before 2020. Nonetheless, Corpus Equus is an unapologetic equestrian leather fragrance. It was created as a tribute to Naomi's own horse, an Arabian stallion. It is dominated by this bold, animalic, smoky combination of birch tar and primal leather, very ambery as well. Despite being fierce, there's a gallant quality to it. There are hints of incense, patchouli, woods, jasmine and so forth, but they all feel dark and charred. I sort of imagine this spirited horse emerging from ash and fire after a war, but it's not a blunt, dark, smoky concoction like some indie brands do. There is still some finesse and composition to it. It's obviously evident when wearing it. Not the most versatile thing in the world, but the days when I wear it, it's such a rewarding experience. Next is the second Hermes on the list. This is a limited edition release created for the Saut d'Hermes horse jumping competition. It's kind of part of the Hermes Sauce collection, It's Paddock from 2024, composed once again by Christine Nagel. The good news is, there was a 2025 version which has been made available not only in Paris but also in select flagship boutiques in major cities around the world. That said, it is still extremely limited. Only a handful of bottles were distributed to each location. I doubt the brand would fold it into the Hermes Sauce collection. It simply doesn't align with the line's aesthetic. It's too bold, characterful, maybe even a little divisive. In terms of scent, it opens with this distinctive blend of carrot seeds, hay, oatmeal-like biscuit facets. As it develops, the darker nuances come in: kid oil, tar, horsey leather, and this warm labdanum, with just a touch of honey for balance. All of this rests on a subtle, earthy, animalic note. It kind of adds an agrestic outdoor realism, not as bold as the last one, but still within the territory of Hermes. It really tries to capture the atmosphere of this event. Kind of feels like stepping out of their polished leather atelier and stepping into the muddy field. It's more visceral compared to their other leather fragrances. It's both a homage to the brand's heritage as well as a playful nod to folklore and countryside authenticity. Even the bottle design reflects that. They are still going strong in terms of leather fragrances. This one, in essence, I think is an indie-style concept imagined and executed by a master perfumer. Simply brilliant. Next is a fragrance using real wood from 2023. This is Rouard from Parfum d'Empire, composed by Marc-Antoine Cotichiato. We know how contentious this note has become over the years. As for its timing within the oud race, this fragrance came out only a couple of years ago. Some felt Marc-Antoine was late to the party, but I think he did just fine. What he has created here isn't just a strong oud composition. It's also a reflection of his passion for the equestrian world, his Corsican roots, and in many ways a culmination of his brand's identity. Kind of brings together many of the notes and themes that define his work. In terms of scent, this one opens bold and assertive, charged with Vietnamese oud. It immediately makes you feel the meaning of the name, Rouard, meaning the kick of a horse. From the start, it's raw, aggressive, animalic, slightly pungent. Then come the countryside nuances, immortelle, hay, cumin, things he often revisits. The result is this muscular, balmy leather with a chestnut brown warmth, all underscored by narcissus and labdanum. It just perfectly captures that unmistakable equestrian scent. I once read that some riders refuse to change clothes after the competition because they just love the scent so much. The mix of hooves, mane, sweat, leather, tar, and wax. Rouard for me captures that image like no other fragrance. The aura of a living, breathing, powerful beast. It isn't just another wood fragrance. In fact, the floral elements, narcissus and jasmine, hay, especially the leather, play as vital a role as the oud itself. I also appreciate that it doesn't glorify oud in the usual ostentatious way, nor does it fall back on the predictable rose-oud pairing. Instead, it uses oud as a means of expression of an idea. For me, this is one of the best Western oud fragrances in a long time. Let's do a couple of designer adjacent fragrances next. From 2020, this is Rouge from Comme the Garçons. This is an unusual blend of spicy facets, resinous facets, all contrasted by a beetroot note. It starts off spicy, peppery, some fresh mint and geranium, setting the stage for the redness to come in. Beetroot can be divisive, and I don't mean that just perfume-wise. I like it, especially in salads, sometimes even prepare drinks with it. Here it is not too earthy or vegetal. If anything, it feels a little green and muddy. It's being offset by the geranium on this smooth, creamy, damp side with a decent amount of sweetness, maybe a hint of soap. It does not take it as far as, say, Radish Vetiver from their Clash series. That one is full on starchy, dry and earthy. This settles down on a more resinous, woody base with the addition of incense and labdanum. Comme des Garçons have played with fragrances in terms of colors before. Black, green, white, you name it. The obvious choice for red would be something like rose. Diptyque attempted something similar by adding rose in their limited edition Kyoto. But I think the brilliance in this is tied to how not everything smells red, so to speak. It's able to create this illusion of the beetroot sort of staining all the other elements, rendering them red. Not all the Comme des Garçons fragrances have been runaway hits for me in the last few years, but creations like Rouge and Marseille are what keeps me interested in whatever new thing they release. Speaking of Rouge, this is the second Guerlain on the list, and it's a flanker of a fragrance which came out long before the 2020s. This is Habit Rouge Privé from 2023, composed by Delphine Yalc. Guerlain has continued to make flankers of two of their pillar fragrances, Shalimar and Habit Rouge. This one seemed like they finally decided not to tinker with it too much, but just select and focus on some elements within the existing framework. They have tried taking it in the sweet direction, cologne direction, giving it a woody amber, blue fragrance twist, and all that seems to take away from the original signature. Does not seem to work as well as it could. As such, this maintains the same overall scent profile of the original Habit Rouge EDT, the huge lemon bergamot opening, the powdery vanilla, the smooth amber, the cologne side of the orange blossom. Everything is still there. They have done this modern twist by adding a splash of zingy ginger, powdery iris, and an even more prominent orange blossom along with amber, all with the backbone of a vintage inflected suede leather note. And it just works wonderfully here. It's my favorite flanker of Habit Rouge so far. This and the Iris were the only two fragrances from the brand that I owned for a long time. That is in terms of new releases from the last 5 years. Sadly, both are gone now. At least I got the latest Shalimar Essence, which is not too bad. I hope that one stays around. Next up, we are going to the house of Rubini. It is Nuvolari from 2021, composed by Cristiano Canali. This tries to capture the setting of high-speed racing as a nod to the Italian racer Nuvolari. Apparently is known for its daring approach on the racetrack. It has this prominent fuel gasoline accord. Of course, Dior's Fahrenheit came to mind, but that is more on the conceptual side of things. This is more literal, especially because of the added rubbery, smoky, leathery facets. There is also metallic, mineralic, industrial, volatile properties. Hint of motor oil kind of earthiness. But it does not take it too far like some indie fragrances can. Still channels this kind of adrenaline without overdoing it. Not too edgy, harsh or synthetic smelling. A good amount of sweetness helps as well. It is unusual and artistic, but a lot of fun to wear. One of the best ones from this evolving brand. Next up is Paradisi from Jorum Studio, composed by Ewan McCall, who is also the co-founder of the brand. It's a Scottish house best known for its naturalistic, botanical style of perfumery. I tried several of them a couple of years ago. A few stood out, but this was the clear highlight. It opens fresh, citrusy, fruity, yet there's also an earthy undercurrent. Only a handful of notes are distinct, the rest kind of blur together, giving it an impressionistic quality. I get this fruit cocktail-like brightness, something akin to grapefruit, fresh, mineralic, with a subtle, watery translucence, remarkably natural and realistic, full of green, rindy, gently wild, bitter nuances. Running alongside that is this earthy, woody, mossy backdrop, slightly petrichor-like. What keeps Paradisi engaging is how these fresh citrus tones remain vibrant all the way through the dry down. A kind of interplay with the earthier facets in perfect sync. It's really like walking through a farmer's market or a garden early morning. The name fits, it feels poetic and conceptual. One of the few memorable discoveries I've come across recently from a smaller independent house. Following that is Barbicaja from Spoturno, composed by Christopher Sheldrake. This is a new brand just from this year, founded by the granddaughter of François Coty. I have done an overview of their 5 debut fragrances a few months ago. Out of the collection, 2 really stood out for me. The 1921 Extrait, which is a meticulous recreation of emerald, though it's incredibly expensive. And this one, Barbicaja, which happens to be my personal favorite. Unlike 1921, Barbicaja isn't a recreation, but an original composition. The name and theme draw from Coty family's history of orange cultivation in Corsica. The fragrance aims to capture that setting. Interestingly, despite the inspiration, it's not a fruity scent whatsoever. Instead, it recalls the crisp, cool, chypre fragrances of the 70s and 80s. It opens fresh, green, radiant, with an abstract white floral bouquet. There is orange blossom, lily of the valley, hyacinth, tuberose, and jasmine, all listed, but individual notes are not evident. The green facets, supported by galbanum, give it structure and lift. The base transitions into a more mossy, earthy dry down that feels effortless. There's a sense of bucolic freshness tempered by the coastal breeze, almost like walking through an evening garden on a grand estate by the sea. It's a beautifully composed, traditional fine French perfume, and to me, so far the standout release of the year. Let's move to another independent voice next, a fragrance that has become a cult favorite. This belongs to that rare, intricate space where art meets olfaction. From 2023, this is Rock, created by Roberto Greco and Christopher Sheldrake. This was born out of Greco's period of introspection and isolation during the lockdown. It's a very difficult fragrance to describe because it's truly abstract. It opens with a totally wild, composed accord. There's some blackcurrant, the feral energy of Narcissus, which is kind of a recurring note in his work. It's used here to express a kind of human fragility and tension. The scent profile itself has a multitude of aspects: floral, rubbery, this kind of mushroomy osmanthus, all grounded by dark resins, old-fashioned leather, and a subtle animalic agrestic tone. It's truly fascinating. Later, an Alep soap accord emerges out of nowhere, bringing contrast to the composition. It's unusual, it's alive, it's ever-shifting, really artistic. This is at the crossroads of Mr. Sheldrake's 2 creative identities: the daring, experimental side we associate with Serge Lutens, and the precision, refinement of his work at Chanel. The outcome is just stunningly original. I just wished it wasn't a rare limited edition. From there, we are going to Frederic Malle. This is Synthetic Jungle from 2021, now called Synthetic Nature, composed by Anne Filippo. I was debating between 2 fragrances. The other was Heaven Can Wait, but decided to go with this in the end because it was a collaboration with a new perfumer for the brand, and the result was excellent. The composition has a lot of sappy galbanum, fresh aromatic basil, all brightened by a tart, acidic blackberry note. It's animated, contoured kind of green, feels alive like plants inside a sunlit greenhouse. Beneath the freshness, there is some subtle indolic jasmine, hyacinth, and a very convincing lily of the valley accord, adding to the floral side of things. In the base, there is some green, earthy patchouli, anchoring everything. And yes, yet another green fragrance, which is something this house does remarkably well. This one in particular stays green from start to finish. It also reflects Frederic Malle's philosophy, in that he has been open about trying to create modern classics inspired by vintage fragrances. In this case, it's number 19 and Private Collection. Interestingly, the same perfumer was behind the Legacy edition of Private Collection. But yes, Synthetic Jungle, I think, deserves more appreciation, frankly. And last is Le Lion from Chanel, released in 2020 and composed by Olivier Poch. The starting point of this fragrance was Gabrielle Chanel's astrological sign, the recurring symbolism of the line in many of the brand's creations. On the other side, the brand had to respond to the Middle Eastern market, though instead of taking the easy route with a rose oud composition, they chose to reinterpret the grand amber tradition. It clearly draws from Shalimar to create this epic labdanum-rich perfume. It opens bright with a commanding bergamot before diving into this dense, smoky heart. Lots of scotched vanilla, leather, extremely resinous, tarry labdanum, almost smoldering in its intensity. Not since Antaeus has the brand done something this bold and animalic. As it settles, it transforms into something far more comforting and enveloping. There's a lot of musks, patchouli and sandalwood, creating this soft, protective warmth, all beneath its roaring heart. It's a fantastically composed, majestic, growling amber, one of my favorite modern creations from the brand, exclusive or otherwise. Easily one of the best ambers of the last decade. Alright, so that's been my rundown of 20 standout fragrances from the last 5 years. And as always, thanks for watching, take care, and ciao.